Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? How was your vacation? For short time, but a rest, right, from our lessons. So hopefully we remember what school we're returning to. Hmm? International School of the West? No, East. Okay. And do we know, or do I have to go to my syllabus here? What's the name of our class? Can't hear you. Okay, so it's HIS 103, Asian History. And we're in the summer of 2020. Okay. So a brief description here. We're going to be talking about things like the Mongol world empire, especially today, the first week, and then learn about early modern Asia and understanding the age of westernization in Asia. Examine China's roots in communism, and hopefully everybody knows that that started with Mao Zedong. And they know the difference of Korea's three kingdoms, right? So if you're Korean, that's the easy part for you there. If you're Chinese, the communism is the easy part for you there. And then East Asia during World War II, we'll go through the major Eastern countries there and see how they did and what they did to survive during that time. Okay. All right. So today's first quarter, or first week, is for July 6th. Okay. So today's lesson is for July 6th. And we will be covering the Mongolian world empire. That should be quite enjoyable. Mongolia's history is very, very interesting. Okay. So let me put that there. And another thing, because I had a little problem with the printing, I bought a notebook hoping that this would be easy to set up the PowerPoint for everybody. But I have an issue with the border and it cuts off words, and I don't want that to happen for you. So even though I've been putting my face in the corner here, just a little bitty small picture of my face that hopefully nobody pays attention to, it will be blocking what I will say. I had to take photos and do a scan. So I think I'm going to try to do it without my face. The important thing is you listen to me read the material, but I also don't want to block anything that you can read. So we're going to have to go that way there. All right? Okay. So let me proceed to that. Let me mark down time here. I know when I'm going to finish. Okay. Don't want to keep you too long and then you start protesting. And then don't want to keep it too short and say, oh, it was so interesting, the reading, and why is so early? No. Right. I know you don't want to do that either. So, okay. Without further ado, let me get to the material here. So let me get there. All right. At the end, I'll have to go back. I just reviewed it, so I know it's all there, but I didn't go back. Okay, and there it is, HIS 103, Asian History. We've already gone over what school we're at. Okay. All right, so see the little problem there with me? So I'm going to have to take it out so you can see. So nobody's interested in looking at the shirt I'm wearing or my glasses. So the important stuff is to get the material. All right. So I will start reading at this time. Yeah, I guess I'll try to put it on the bottom. We'll see. All right. Mongol Tempest. Genghis Khan, 1162 and 1227. I have a lot of Mongolians in class, so this will be the easy part for you. Mongols were unheard of before the 12th century. Is anybody alive here in the 12th century? Only Temujin? Okay. Though there are some obscure means hard to find, right? Hard to find, not many. So, though there are some obscure references in Tang period sources. So Chinese did a lot of writing in the Tang Dynasty about different things. To a tribe whose name, although written differently, might have been pronounced something like Mongol. It is uncertain whether this was really the same tribe. So if that is true, then I guess some of the first writings about these people were during the before the 12th century. In any case, as of the mid-12th century, the Mongols were still only one obscure, there's the word obscure again, I guess the writer likes to use the word obscure, steppe nomad tribe living among others. So that's the thing you'll see. There was a lot of different tribes, and Temujin was able to bring them all together into one Mongolian unifying force. The legendary story of their rise to earth-shaking prominence or power begins with the fatal poisoning of a Mongol leader at what was expected to be a friendly meal with the neighboring Tatar tribe around 1167. So you can see also here, there's another tribe of people here, they're the Tatars. After this murder, the Mongol tribe temporarily scattered. And scattered means they go into different places, right? We can use that modernly, like we know we have too many McDonald's all over the place. And since they're all over the place, some people say it seems like every corner, they are scattered throughout the city. So Mongols scattered all over the terrain of that area. The dead chieftain's son, Temujin, who's in my class now, fled or escaped with his mother to the mountains, where they survived by hunting and fishing. Yes, there were no rows and bonds there at the time. Gradually, after many exploits or adventures, Temujin built up a personal following of sworn companions. Sworn means they did an oath to him and said, we will follow you and protect you and fight with you, who supposedly pricked their fingers and mixed their blood to become blood brothers. Right? American Indians have a similar technique, but they cut the inside of their hand. The other person doesn't, they mix them, pricking the fingers. Eventually, Temujin won recognition as Khaan, or leader of the Mongol tribe, and took the title Chinggis, which means boundless, and Khaan, also spelled, at least here, the common way we see this is Genghis Khan, right, with a she, whereas at the top here you see it's with a CH. Meanwhile, Tatar power had been growing in the area of the eastern Gobi Desert. To oppose these or go against these Tatars, Genghis Khan sought an alliance with another nomadic tribal confederation, the Karayids. I think Inki belongs to the Karayids, many of whom happened to be Nestorian Christians. Wow, didn't know that. Christians at that time in that area. Wow. Around the year 1198, the Mongol-Karayid alliance went to war with the Tatars. And Genghis Khan was finally able to avenge his father's murder. There you go. It's an answer to a question I'm going to ask you. In the process, Genghis Khan also emerged or came forward as a remarkably successful warrior leader. Wow, and later my student. By 1206, Genghis Khan's army numbered around 95,000. Okay, so let me match this up. Like I said, I don't want to get you lost here. Make sure we're on the up and up. Okay, so good. We're at the bottom of the page. So let me mark that one. And let me get to the questions. You know I got to get to the whiteboard, right? You know that. So let me go back to sharing the screen. Okay, and let me get that pencil. Where's that pencil? Last time I think Young Peel stole my pencil. Okay. Okay, question 1 of the summer quarter. Okay. Okay. Here we go. I think last time I ended out the quarter with an injured hand, so this time I can use both. Okay, question 1. The legendary story of the Mongols began with what? What meaning what event? According to the book, Mongols were unheard of as far as being a national power, but something happened that set this in motion. So what was the event that the book states began the legendary rise of the Mongols? Okay. I still got the pencil. Let me see. Yay, 2. Okay, this should be an easy one, even if you're not Mongolian. What was the name of the Mongols' first leader? Was it Purevi? Was it the mysterious Ken from Seattle? Who was it? Was it Donald Trump? Was he the Mongols' first leader? I don't think he's that old. Okay, so that's 2. I have one last one here for this page. Okay, this person, since 3 is connected to 2, later took the title of what? So once you know the answer to 2, whether it's Purevi or Donald Trump, what did this person take the title of later? Was it President of the United States or Chairman of Communist China? What title did this person take? So let me give you a few minutes to write those down. Break away from your Candy Crush and your Facebook account. Or if it's Munkbayar talking to her boyfriend on the phone. So try to write these down so I can proceed on to the next page. So go ahead. Okay, we got that done. All right, then you know I got to hit to that eraser. All right. So let me erase the first one. Again, the legendary story of the Mongols began with what? 2, what was the name of the Mongols' first leader, was it Bill Clinton? 3, this person later took the title of what? So, let's see here. Okay. All right, so like I said, we ended down here at 95,000. So let me continue. Whoops, I think I went one too far. Bad machine. Okay, so we should be at the top with men. Very good. Okay, so men and an assembly of tribal notables known as Kuriltai. Kuriltai. Hopefully you guys can do a better job than I did on that. In that year, he received recognition as Great Khaan over all those who live in felt tents. I think my student Temujin, he's the Great Khan, or of all those who live in K-Town. Yeah. Many of the warriors who fought for Genghis Khan were actually speakers of Turkic languages rather than the Mongolic. And they were certainly not all members of the original Mongol tribe. But as Genghis Khan's star rose dramatically, the Mongol identity also began to spread. Right? Starts growing over large areas of territory. Throughout imperial Chinese history, since the beginning of the Han Dynasty in the 2nd century BCE, the military superiority of nomadic cavalry had posed a recurring threat. And again, nomadic means people that change where they live on a very frequent basis, usually due to weather or food shortage. And Mongolians have always been called nomadic peoples. As we have seen, semi-nomadic emperors ruled many of the northern dynasties during China's great age of division. And the reunified Sui and the Tang dynasties sprang or came forth from culturally mixed origins. It has even been claimed that the semi-nomads or nomadized persons actually ruled a majority of all the dynasties in imperial Chinese history. But these various ruling groups had nearly all begun as frontiersmen in China's immediate border areas. They were commonly already thoroughly exposed to Chinese civilization, and in some senses often could be considered Chinese. The Mongols were different. We shall expand on that. Okay. In general, the nomadic lifestyle, which is based on the mobile raising of goats, sheep, cattle, horses, and camels, is fundamentally different from the stereotypical Chinese lifestyle based on intensive sedentary farming. The ecological boundary between steppe grassland and fertile farmland is furthermore especially sharp along the frontier between Mongolia and China. So some natural parts of nature there are quite different. In other parts of Eurasia bordering on the steppe, the ecological division may be less pronounced, and especially where both nomads and farmers were Muslim, the sources of conflict may have been reduced. Confrontations between nomads and farmers on the frontier of China may have therefore been especially acute or sharp. But not all Chinese are really necessarily farmers. See, some are not. There have always been ranchers and semi-nomadic tribes living inside the Chinese Empire, which frequently extended northward to include at least Inner Mongolia. That's a different part. There's a regular Mongolia and then there's the Inner Mongolia. So other part is called outer, right? Inner, outer. Frontier warriors often played a useful role in the service of the Chinese Empire, and a degree of occupational specialization for different groups also existed inside China. So pretty self-explanatory there. Let me proceed. Genghis Khan's Mongols were the exception, completely different. They came more truly from outside the Chinese world and remained permanently outsiders. Their conquests were also unparalleled, which means nobody matched their conquest on that level, to that extreme. The explanation for their sudden eruption or flying out from the steppe at this particular moment has always been something of a historical puzzle. Some scholars have attempted to explain the Mongol invasions as a result of climate change, arguing that there was a decrease in the average temperature in the years 1180 and 1220. So we don't know. I don't think anybody's alive from that time to say for sure. Leading to shorter growing seasons and driving the nomads off the steppe in search of other resources, right? Go farther away looking for food. In this case, however, the much maligned, which means criticized, great man approach to history may also explain a great deal. The dynamic personality of Genghis Khan himself, a vigorous commander who believed that the sky god Tengeri had given him a mission to bring the entire world under one sword, may have been much of the reason for the explosive Mongol conquest. You see, it's a mix of a couple of things there. Although the entire population of the Mongolian steppes in the 12th century may have been only about 1 million, the hardiness is classified as, because they have to grow up in such a difficult weather and poor and having to deal with livestock, they're strong. They have a hardiness or a strength that, let's say, city people don't have. So the hardiness of the nomads and their skill with horse and bow meaning shooting arrows, made them an almost unstoppable force. Okay, so now we're down at the end of the second page. That was a long one, but interesting information as usual. So I have to go to the questions now. Okay. Back to the whiteboard, back to getting my pencil. Okay. So this would be question 4. Right. Okay. Okay, question 4. What was the Mongol military superiority? What was their superiority that they had over, let's say, China or other countries at the time? Was it that they had a great air force? Was it that they have a lot of battleships and a strong military, navy? Excuse me. What was their military superiority at that time. Right? But we all know that Mongolia is a seaport town, right? Where's my pencil? Okay. And you know, I'm only going to ask a long page. I'm only going to ask 2 questions there. I'm being too kind again. I think I need a donation. Okay. Okay. This is also important for their conquest. At that time, what did Genghis Khan believe? What was it in his belief that aided the Mongols in acquiring so much land? Right? Okay, let me give you a few minutes to answer those 2. I don't want, again, Pamela Titan Flores to say, oh, you erased them too quickly. I was sleeping. I just woke up. So I'll give you some time to do that. Let me mark this off. Step by step. So I don't have to worry about them looking at me at all, even though I'm usually up in the corner. Right? Okay, you got those 2? All right, let me go back to the eraser. Like I said, nobody's missing my face in the corner. Yay. 4, what was the Mongol military superiority? Right? I think it might have been the tanks that they had. 5, what did Genghis Khan believe? That the world was flat, like a Columbus? Okay. All right. Okay, so we finished that page with the almost unstoppable force. I must proceed. Right. Now we're at the top of the next page. After consolidating, which means combining or bringing things together, I'll give you like a current example. A lot of you haven't been here that many years, but we used to have a lot of different banks here in Los Angeles. We had Security Pacific, we had First Interstate. What are some other banks? Union Bank. And they were all bought by the strongest bank, which is Bank of America. That's why we have more Bank of Americas than anything out there. That means they consolidated. So here, Genghis Khan consolidated his command over the various tribes of the Mongolian steppe in 1210. Chinggis struck south at the Jurchen Jin Dynasty in northern China. Between the first assault or attack and about 1260, so that's like a 50-year span of attacks. Wow. However, the Mongols made little serious attempt to occupy and rule the territory they overran in northern China, resulting in widespread and lasting devastation, which what they mean there is maybe if they had occupied it, then it would have been okay, but just attacking it and leaving and attacking it, the people could not build something strong as far as a society. So that was not good. Devastation means you almost completely destroy something. Genghis Khan next turned west, leading an attack on Central Asia. In 1220, he captured the Central Asian city of Bukhara. Legend has it that on entering the great mosque in Bukhara, so I think we all know what a mosque is, right? Christians go to church, Jewish folks go to temple, and Muslims go to mosque. So now we know it's an Islamic country. Chinggis Khan proclaimed himself the scourge of God. And the scourge is something like a bad curse. So he's saying, you know, I'm the curse of God against you. So pretty rough guy. Genghis Khan died in 1227, before the Mongols had completed their destruction of the Qin Dynasty in North China in 1234. And before the Mongol attack on the southern Song had even begun in 1235. But the Mongol onslaught, which means like an ongoing attack, you don't stop, continued after Genghis Khan's death. See, it continued. He died, it didn't stop. Previous nomadic cavalry armies had always been stopped by the barrier of the Yangtze River and the rice paddies and generally wet terrain of South China. To conquer the southern Song, the Mongols had to learn the techniques of naval and siege, which is like a strong, short attack as a siege, warfare, and such novel Chinese technologies as the use of gunpowder. They also made good use of the classic strategy for conquering the lower Yangtze River Valley by outflanking it and attacking down the line of the river from the west. By 1279, the last pretender to the Song throne had drowned off the southeast coast, and the Mongols had completed their conquest of China. Okay, so you see there'll be some questions from this paragraph, so pay attention. Okay, getting down to the bottom of the page. Let me see, I don't want to get lost here. Did I go too far? Let me check something. Oops. Okay. Let me see if I mark this correctly. Okay, I'm on the other side. Good. So next should be the Mongols. Yes. The Mongols conquered. I got it in my book, so don't worry if you can't see it. The Mongols conquered the largest land empire in the history of the world. Wow. In the west, they overran parts of Poland and Hungary. And again, those are in Europe, Eastern Europe, and pushed as far as the Adriatic Sea. In the south, they raided into India, although they did not then attempt to occupy it. In the northeast, the Mongols won the submission of Korea. Two huge amphibious, which means by ships, invasions of the Japanese islands were both scattered by typhoons with disastrous results. That's where we get the Japanese word kamikaze. However, in a strike southeast into the region of Vietnam, became mired or stuck, slowed down in tropical jungles and fierce resistance. And that's another thing through history, not only with the Mongols, it happened with Napoleon's forces in Russia and later Hitler's in Russia. A lot of times what can help a country win a war and survive is their natural terrain or weather. So for Napoleon and Hitler, his troops, many of them just froze in the fierce Russian winters. Even the Mongol Empire eventually reached its limits. While the Mongol conquests were still accumulating, meanwhile, Genghis Khan's grandson, Kublai Khan, was acclaimed as Khagan, that is Khan of the Khans, or Great Khan, in 1260, and began to consolidate a semi-Chinese style Yuan dynasty based at Beijing. the east. So Genghis Khan, originally Temujin's grandson, so that must be Temujin and Tol's grandson. Oh my. Okay. So now we're at the bottom. The Yuan Dynasty. Although Kublai Khan styled himself Great Khan, or thought of himself, portrayed himself as the Great Khan, Khan of Khans, his position as supreme leader of the Mongols was contested by a younger brother, I think his name was Prithvi, and later by a cousin. Cracks were already beginning to appear in the vast Mongol world empire. These fissures, which are high-level word for cracks, can be traced all the way back to the time of Genghis Khan's death, when each of his four principal lines of descent, which means the family lines, received their own separate territorial bases. Explaining further, these evolved into what became four effectively independent Mongol Khanates. The Golden Horde in the area of Russia, the Ilkhanate in the area of Persia, or what is known today as Iran, the Chagadai Khanate in Central Asia, and the Yuan dynasty in East Asia. The conversion of the Mongol Khans in the West, only in the West, to Islam in 1295, just 16 years after the Mongols had finished conquering southern Song dynasty China, can be said to mark the effective end of any unified Mongol empire. So the other three did not become Islamic, but that one did in the West, and that caused problems for unifications. So I'm at the bottom of the next page, so let me mark that off. Okay. And proceed to the whiteboard. Okay. And so, okay, so I have a number of questions on this page. Sorry, you're not going to escape that easily in this one. But they're easy ones, not long. Okay. The first one being, where did the Mongolians attack first? Was it Mexico? Did they attack Mexico first? Was it K-Town they attacked first? Or Santa Monica Beach? Where did the Mongolians attack first? Once they became unified. Okay, let me go to the next one. Still have my pencil. Yay. So for all my Mongolian students, if you've missed this question, you have to go back to Mongolia. You can never return United States. If you don't know this one, I don't know what to tell you. Your father will be angry. Oops. I'll keep the one spelling. Okay, when did Chinggis Khan die? I'm sure everybody in Mongolia knows this. If you don't, oh my gosh, what a scandal. And if you're a lady from Mongolia and you don't know this answer, then you cannot get married. That's it, right? Americans don't know this. Probably American people probably say something like, oh, I think he died in 1970, right? Okay, so when did Genghis Khan die? Give me the year. Back to the pencil. Okay, it's a longer question, so bear with me. Okay, 8. What traditionally stopped the Mongols from conquering southern China? Was it a big freeway system that they had at the time for all the Chinese cars that they were producing? What traditionally stopped the Mongols from conquering southern China? Or the Mongols didn't have any interest in going to the south. They just wanted to stay in the north. See if you can catch what that is. Okay. And the next one will be my last question for this long page. Okay. But you had enough on this page, that's for sure. What happened to my pencil? Okay. 9. How far did the Mongols reach in Europe? Did they reach all the way to France? Did they reach all the way to England? How far did they reach? Right? Again, that's pretty far from Mongolia. So I'll give you a few minutes. You've got 4 there, and then we'll proceed. All right, you getting those down, Ken and Caroline and Miss Flores, the gang of 3 there? I don't know if you've recruited a new person. Last quarter, I think you got Gao into your gang for a short time. But we'll see. Gao might be out of the school now. She got married to her boyfriend, Steve. Okay, so I'm going to start erasing these. Let me get the eraser. Okay, 6, where did the Mongolians attack first? I'll say Tijuana. 7, when did Genghis Khan die? 1970. 8, what traditionally stopped the Mongols from conquering southern China? They were tired. They didn't want to get over there. And 9, how far did the Mongols reach in Europe? Maybe Chicago? Because there's a lot of Mongolians in Chicago. Okay, thank you. All right, let me get back to this juicy literature. Okay, so we ended on the bottom with the word empire. So let me go to the next page. Right. Genghis Khan had not been Chinese. I think that's pretty obvious. Had not spent much time in China and did not speak the Chinese language. His grandson Kublai Khan, on the other hand, lived most of his life in and ruled primarily over China. Although he probably never learned to read Chinese and relied on Chinese interpreters, he did learn to speak enough Chinese that he sometimes pointedly corrected those interpreters. Kublai Khan frequently dressed in Chinese-style clothing, and in 1266, he built a magnificent new Chinese-style capital at Beijing, then known as Dadu, the Great Capital. I wonder if Gao knew that, since she's got a master's in Chinese history. Kublai Khan attempted to conciliate or bring together his Chinese subjects by forbidding nomads from grazing their herds on Chinese farmland. So what he's saying is Even if these nomads were Mongolians, he said, no, please don't have your cattle and horses eat the grassland that belonged to Chinese farmland. This was a way to make the Chinese people respect him. In 1271, he also took the Chinese language dynastic title Yuan, which means roughly beginning. To some extent, Kublai Khan did rule China in Chinese style, not Mongolian style. Very interesting. But the Mongol Yuan dynasty was more than just China. The Mongols had, for example, subdued or conquered Tibet in 1252, for the first time establishing a patron-priest relationship between an empire based in China and Tibetan lamas. Tibetan lamas are not animals, but priests, if you don't know that. Right, Mr. Hong? The implications of this relationship, first, established in the Yuan dynasty, remain controversial today. So they remain controversial even to today. I think there's a little typo in the book. Kublai Khan also divided the entire population of his empire into 4 hierarchical ethnic categories. So hierarchical means from top to bottom. With the Mongols on top, next the Western and Central Asians in the next position, the Northern Chinese and Jurchens, and finally the Southern Chinese on the bottom, last of the list. Most high-level positions in the Yuan Empire were held by non-Chinese. And in 1289, Kublai Khan even felt obliged to prohibit Southern Chinese from possessing or owning bows and arrows out of fear they might rebel against him. Okay, so we're at the half of the page. So let me go to the second half of it. Okay, so again, a little block there, but just listen to me because I've got it here in my book just to help us. By the time he had completed his conquest of the southern Song in 1279, Kublai Khan was already in his late 60s. He was old by the standards of the day. I think most people lived to their 40s, so to live to his late 60s, wow. For example, okay, the standards of the day, and his final years were dogged by failures, which means he had many failures. Kublai Khan, for example, attempted to impose a new universal writing system based on Tibetan, which simply failed to win acceptance. So the people did not want it. I could tell you something similar. When I was in elementary school, they tried to implement the metric system, which I think all of you guys from all your countries know. And I was one of the not so smart ones that could not understand the metric system. So we didn't use it, and we kept our inches and feet and yards, things like that. So we didn't accept the metric system in the US, and Mongolians did not accept this new writing system. His 2 invasions of Japan were disasters. In 1294, he died. Within a few years after his death, the Mongol Empire in China began to tear itself apart amid succession disputes. So again, that means different family members fighting to say, I am the next Khan, I am the next Khan. And they were difficult to resolve. Such struggles over succession were a frequent feature of steppe history. So I guess they're saying in the Mongol history, family members have always fought to be the next in line. Although the steppe tradition was that leadership should be broadly hereditary within a single family, there were no fixed rules for selection. And descent could just as easily pass from an older brother to a younger brother, or from a father to a younger son, as from father to eldest son. The result was that when a Khaan died, it was normal for there to be a power struggle. In addition, and catastrophically means a terrible situation happens, the Bubonic Plague also made its appearance in the Mongol-ruled Yuan Empire sometime around 1320s. From there, the plague spread along the newly established transcontinental Mongol trade routes to the Mediterranean and Europe, where the resulting Black Death had a major impact on medieval European history. So these are both interchangeable terms. Some people call it the Bubonic Plague, which is a medical term, and then some people call the nickname of it, which is the Black Death, which I think when the people got it and died, they turned black. Terrible, spread by rats. In China, it has been estimated that as much as a third of the entire population may have died of the plague. For many, it seemed as if the end of the world was at hand. And again, to let you know, many American people think that the bubonic plague or Black Death only occurred in Europe. They have no idea that it attacked the Chinese in such great numbers and the Mongols. They have no idea. The chaos was interpreted by some people as foretelling the apocalyptic arrival of the future Buddha Maitreya. So what they're saying there with those big words is like a fortune teller. A fortune teller foretells your future. So people thought, oh my God, and apocalyptic means the end of the world. So they thought the Buddha Maitreya was here, and most of the Mongolians, if not all, were Buddhists. And that's something they had in common with the Tibetans. When Mongol authorities reacted fearfully by trying to suppress or keep down this end of the world apocalyptic religion, the faithful began to arm themselves and go into rebellion. So fighting with weapons. Meanwhile, a certain teenage boy named Zhu Yuanzhang, okay, and that brings us to the bottom of that page. That would be the book 139. So that means I got to ask questions now. Back to those questions. Okay. Get that pencil. Okay. So this will be 10. Okay, who later ruled China for the Mongols? Remember, Genghis Khan had died, so this is a different person. Don't answer Genghis Khan. Right? So who later ruled China for the Mongols? Okay. That's the next question. Which country did Mongolia fail to invade 2 times? So both times were failures. Which country was it? Was it the United States? Was it Russia? Was it Spain? Which country was it? And then this will be the last one for this page. Okay, so our last question for this page. What contributed heavily to the Mongols' downfall in 1320s? So something happened in the 1320s that was a big, big factor for the Mongolians to start to lose their empire. Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes to answer those or write down those 2 threes at least. Okay. Uh-oh. Yeah, I have some dogs trying to break into my house here in Ajishado, so I have to go out and give them some food, tell them to be quiet. There you go. Okay, you got those 3, Pamela? Titan, Flores from Bohol. Okay, no, I know you're from Davao. So let me get the eraser. Where's that eraser? Okay. So 10, who later ruled China for the Mongols? Maybe it was President Obama, who knows, or Ping. Which country did Mongolia fail to invade 2 times? I'm gonna guess it was Brazil. And then 12, what contributed heavily to the Mongols' downfall in 1320s? Maybe they did not have McDonald's, so that was a big factor. Okay, let me stop the screen here, go back to literature. So we end at the bottom of the page with Zhu Yuanzhang. Turn that over. Right, okay. So in 1328 to 1398, Yuan had been orphaned and taken into a Buddhist monastery where he prepared to become a monk. When the monastery where he had lived was destroyed by Mongol troops or soldiers, he joined a religiously inspired rebel band. That just means a group, does not mean a musical band, called the Red Turbans. As a rebel, Zhu Yuanzhang demonstrated considerable military talent, and he quickly rose through the ranks, eventually becoming a king with his own independent forces. Wow, pretty strong guy. In 1368, at the age of 40, Zhu's army succeeded in capturing Beijing and reunifying China. Zhu Yuanzhang now proclaimed himself the founding emperor of a new dynasty, which he called Ming, the Ming dynasty. The word Ming means bright, and the title was chosen to signify the supposed victory of the forces of light. Despite the natural tendency of modern Chinese nationalists to see the Ming as a restoration of native Chinese rule, following a dark interlude or specific set of time, which was the foreign conquest. However, people did not necessarily see it in quite those terms at that time. Remember, many things are seen different in history. How we look at something now is different than what it was looked at the time, and we have to respect that. Many Chinese families who had served the Mongol Yuan dynasty had come to see it as the legitimate object of Confucian loyalty. So we're talking about Confucius, the great Chinese philosopher. It took years before everyone in China entirely accepted the legitimacy of this new native Chinese Ming Dynasty. In his accession decree, even the Ming founder himself acknowledged the century-long legitimacy of the Mongol Yuan dynasty, though he insisted it had now come to an end. Okay? So we're at the half of the page there. We go to the bottom half. Okay. Here we go back with the Bubonic Plague, folks. Bubonic Plague aside, the years of Mongol rule in China had not been altogether terrible. So it's like saying that they weren't all bad. They were, for example, something of a golden age for Chinese painting and theater. And the Mongols did promote trade and cultural exchange. These were the years when the Arab traveler Ibn Battuta and the Italian Marco Polo both visited China. And Nestorian Christians from China had audiences or meetings with the Pope and the kings of England and France. Wow. The century of the Mongol peace, 1250 to 1350, saw increased global connections and helped inspire a later age of European world exploration. Marco Polo's account or story of his 24 years traveling in the Far East revolutionized European knowledge of world geography. Whether or not Christopher Columbus had actually read Polo before setting sail on his epical voyage of discovery, which we get the word epic, Columbus was certainly familiar with the Polo story. So maybe he read it, maybe he didn't, but he had heard about it. At least he was familiar with Marco Polo's story. In China, the Ming Dynasty reaction to the memory of Mongol rule may have been somewhat the opposite of the Western European reaction to retreat into defensive isolationism. Of perhaps greater significance for world history, however, was that both China and Western Europe recovered from the crisis of Mongol conquest and the Bubonic Plague more successfully than the Islamic world. Interesting. After the Mongol capture of Baghdad in 1258, the Middle East, which had until then arguably always been the leading world center of human civilization, entered a phase of long-term relative economic decline. And Europe, India, and China emerged or came forth as the world's principal new economic leaders. Okay, so that brings us at the bottom of what would be 140. Okay, that means I have to go back to questions. And guess what? I'm only going to have 2 questions on that one. Being kind again. I got to stop it. Got to stop being kind. Get that pencil. If you want, I can think of some new questions, some extra questions. Up to you. Okay, this will be 13. Okay, what did Mongolia promote in China? Okay, what did they promote? Did they promote their soccer team? I found out that Mongolia has a hockey team too. Did they promote the hockey team? I think Prithvi was a hockey champion. Right? Okay, so like I said, I'm only going to ask you two here, so you can start clapping now. Yay. Let me see if I still have that pencil. Tell me which I didn't steal that pencil and go to 7-Eleven or Starbucks again. That's where I can find him. Not in class, but at the Starbucks. Okay. Last question for this page. I wonder if my Mongolian students know this or not. I'm asking you for a date here, but again, if you're Mongolian, it might be easy. When was the Mongolian century of peace? When was it? So I'm looking for a date, or two dates, because you have to do the actual century. So that has to be the beginning and on end, right? So I'll give you a few to write those down. Right, Caroline, write them down. Stop giggling in the back seat there. Right, you too, Inky. Or hopefully so he's in my class again. That would be nice. We'll see. Or Lesa. Okay, so let me get the eraser. So again, 13, what did Mongolia promote in China? The new Mongolian car? Maybe. 14, when was the Mongolian century of peace? Was it 1920 to 2020? Or we just finished it? We shall see. Okay, that's gone. So let me stop sharing this. Go back to the delicious reading. So again, we ended at the bottom of that page on leaders. Now we have to jump a few pages ahead into some juicy stuff. Okay. So I've got it split up there. So the era of Mongol domination, 1270 through 1356. Mongol attacks, like we said earlier, on the Jurchen-ruled Qin Dynasty in North China had begun in 1210. And Mongol strikes at Korea began in 1231. So 21 years later, they attacked Korea for the first time. Although the assaults, which means attacks, were sporadic, which means not consistent, but occasional, Mongol armies overran and laid waste to almost the entire peninsula. That would be of Korea. Amid general destruction, for example, the first edition of the Korean Buddhist this is a hard word for me. The Korean Buddhist Tripitaka was burned. So that's like a Bible, Buddhist Bible. The Koryo government, nonetheless, stubbornly continued to resist the Mongols because they didn't give up. They were tough. They ate a lot of kimchi. I admire them. So they resist the Mongols from a base on a small island off the western coast. I wonder if any of my Korean students know what that is. Could that be Dokdo or Ulongdo? And fighting continued off and on until 1270. Wow. So remember, they first started attacking in 1231. And 1270, which is 39 years later, still fighting, even though it was sporadic. when a pro-Mongol government was finally established in Korea. Okay. So this is a tiny spot. This is actual up here is the page. So I will only have one question there for you. Okay. So let me go. Stop sharing. Go to the whiteboard. So again, this small stuff has only one question. This would be question 15. Like, teacher, you're giving a lot of questions. Where's my pencil? Okay. Well, we have a lot to read. I'm sorry, it's the first week back. I would like to be kind, but you know I'm usually too tough with you. Okay, so our one question for this page is, it should be easy. We just read it. It's fresh in our minds. When did Mongolia start attacking Korea? So again, I'm looking for a year. Was it 1950 at the start of the Korean War? Was it 1945, the end of the Second World War? Was it 1977 during the disco period? Remember, I was a disco baby. So that's my one and only question for this small page, which I will mark off. Okay, I'll give you a second to write that down again. Get away from your Candy Crush. Stop texting your boyfriend, and you know, get off the Facebook, Todd. Write that down. We'll be done on that one. Okay. Okay, let me go back to the eraser. She was too kind. If you want, I can try to make up, give me a few minutes and I'll make up like 4 more questions on this page. Is that okay? You don't want? That's too bad. Okay, eraser. 15. When did Mongolia start attacking Korea? Give me the year. And we'll know what we're doing at that point. I'll stop sharing the whiteboard. Get back to the material. So we finished the top part here. This starts the very, I guess, our last page. Are you sad because this is the last page? I thought so. Okay. The Mongols did not directly incorporate Korea into their Yuan dynasty. Remember, that's based in China. Instead, they allowed the Koryo kings to retain the form of having their own Korean dynasty. But although Korean kings continued to rule the peninsula from 1270 to 1356, wow, that's almost 100 years. They did so in subordination to Mongol overlords. So the Mongols were still higher than the Korean kings. At first, under the watchful eyes of resident Mongol commissioners known as Darugachi. So maybe Portuguese are Darugachi. And after 1280, overseen by a Mongol institution known as the Eastern Expedition Field Headquarters. Wow, is that a real translation? During these years, the Mongols dethroned or took off the kingdom, Koryo kings, no fewer than 7 times. So they were upset with Korean kings, they got rid of them, even though they had power over their own Korean subjects. The Mongols, however, also attempted to maintain good relations with their Koryo vassals. the Korean king's son married a daughter of Kublai Khan, and Koryo princesses soon became regular travelers, or actually princes, sorry, became regular travelers between the Koryo capital at Kaesong and the Mongol capital at Beijing. Remember the Yuan dynasty. During the period of Mongol domination in the 13th and 14th centuries, the heirs to the Koryo throne nearly all had Mongol mothers and grew up in Beijing. So, wow, one day you might be the king of Korea, but your mom was Mongolia and you grew up in China. Wow. Koryo became what has been colorfully described as a son-in-law state, or as my Koreans say, Sawi, okay, state to the Mongol Yuan dynasty. And Koryo kings took Mongol names and often wore Mongol dress and hairstyles. Very interesting exchange of cultures there. I bet most people don't know about that. Okay, so we're at the middle. Let me go to the bottom half. Just when it gets interesting. Under the Yuan dynasty, the city that today is called Beijing was the capital of a vast transcontinental Mongol empire. It was more than just a Chinese city. At the same time, nonetheless, it was also still a largely Chinese city, so meaning the inhabitants. In Beijing, visiting Koreans encountered Neo-Confucianism, again, Confucius. In 1313, one Korean king even retired to Beijing, where he founded a Sino-Korean Mongol Neo-Confucian, I'm tired of talking, salon called the Hall of 10,000 Volumes. Wow, that's a mouthful. Meanwhile, the Korean Academy was rebuilt and the Korean National Shrine to Confucius restored. Leading Confucian scholars were appointed as teachers in the academy, and they gathered dedicated followings. Spurning means rejecting the old-style textual studies for more stimulating discussions of the true meaning of the classics, Confucian classics. Paradoxically, Mongol overlordship in Korea did much to promote a Neo-Confucian revival in Korea. Okay, now we're on to the very last part, unless Inky wants me to add some more. I'll think about it as I finish this. As Mongol rule began disintegrating in China, which means disappearing, in 1356, King Kongmin, 1351 to 1374, he lived a long time also, broke with the pro-Mongol faction or government in Korea and regained Korean independence. Wow. After the Chinese rebel leader Zhu Yuanzhang defeated the Mongols and founded his new Ming dynasty in China in 1368, King Kongmin stopped using the Mongol reign period, meaning traditional calendars in each Asia did not date from any fixed benchmark or date in the past, and instead used imperial reign periods, the acceptance of which implied submission, or saying, we support you, we gave up to your power, and adopted pro-Ming policies, meaning government policies. Though King Kongmin successfully asserted Korean independence from the Mongols, he also less successfully, unfortunately, tried to extend royal authority over the powerful Korean families, meaning the other families. In 1374, he was assassinated by a Korean aristocrat. Aristocrat is some high society kind of guy. Okay, so that's it for the reading. Let me mark that off. We have finished all our pages of reading. Fantastic. But that means we got to have a question or two. Should I be kind? Let me see. Let me stop sharing this. Let me go to the whiteboard for the last time today. Let me grab that pencil. How kind do I want to be? You want one or two questions? Oh, did I hear three? Four? Okay. I think I'll still be kind. I'll just give you one. Our last question for today. Oh, good. Temujin didn't steal my pencil because he wants to go home. Okay, here we go. Easy one, easy as pie. Oh, I'm tired. I have to go to the restroom. Can I finish the question when I come back? Is that okay? No? I'm gonna go restroom. No, I'm gonna be strong. Okay, last question for the day. Let me mark that off too. What did Korea have as a nickname under Mongolian rule? What was their nickname? Okay. So for the Korean students, I'll give you a hint. Sawi. Okay. So if you don't know what that means, you're gonna have to get your reading. So this is the last question. Let me give you a minute or two to write it down. Wake up. It's at the end of the class, my students. Be happy. Right? I didn't go to the restroom. I'm still here with you. Okay. All right. So let me get the eraser and let you guys know that that's it for today. Our first week, which is the week of 7/6/2020, July the 6th. Right. Again, in our content today was the Mongol world empire. We got the eraser. What did Korea have as a nickname under Mongolian rule? Sawi. Okay, so let me stop sharing and I will end the lesson. Hope to talk to you guys next week. Okay, all right, bye-bye.